Yo, what's good, y'all? It's your boy Gotti03, aka DP Gotti03, aka Samari. Back here with another video, man. But look, today, part 3. Shout out to all the love and support y'all been showing through me reacting to this and checking out, bro. Y'all know I'm gonna be back with some more Sidhu Muswala once I'm done with this Trap Lil Ross video. I'm gonna react to some actual songs. Appreciate you for dropping the channel that had the English translation. I'm gonna be checking out that, and I'm gonna be checking out the original just to, just to, you know, for sake of it, you know what I'm saying? Just to check out the original art in itself. Social media's up there. I ain't got too much else to say.
But behind the scenes wasn't just his gangster persona that was developing, but also his real ties and interactions with real gangs in the underworld of India and Canada, with these dangerous activities ultimately attracting him a lot of negative attention that would ultimately come back to haunt him from both the gangsters running in the streets of India and Canada, as well as the authorities that are meant to protect him from them. By December of 2019, Sidhu Muswala had taken the crown of India's most buzzing gangster rapper. He had blended the sounds of America's rap anthems with the melodies and cadence of his native Punjabi music, and in the process became one of the most watched stars in the country. He wanted to be India's Tupac, and at this point, all eyes were truly on him. And interestingly, when he decided to get active on social media at the end of 2019 and into 2020, he would truly be living that thug life. He'd been posing pictures like this one, holding what seems to be a 9mm Beretta handgun. As Sidhu explained in early interviews, he was obsessed with powerful steel, whether it's firearms or tractors. And Sidhu would use his Instagram to post all manner of powerful steel. In another picture posted up on Insta, he would show off a new tractor with a Thug Life decal and a caption where he claims to have been around death. But it would be much more than guns and tractors.
Fuck all that other shit. That Thug Life decal is so hard. On a tractor? The Thug Life on the tractor?
Tractor with a Thug Life decal and a caption where he claims to have been around death. But it would be much more than guns and tractors. What sort of gangster rapper would he be without posting some flashy lifestyle pics to show off that he was surrounded by money and luxury? And moving into February 2020, Sidhu would post up next to a Bugatti Veyron with a caption paying homage to Tupac, referring to a rose that grew from the concrete. Sidhu was clearly having a good year and living the good life. His 2020 kicked off with a bang, appearing as a feature on Prem Dillon's track Old School, which racked up a ridiculous 320 million views. It came with brash bars about having to put in work on the streets and the police being onto him. He would shout out which guns he's got in his arsenal, rapping that he likes guns more than girls, and he would drop electrifying bars about having single-handedly brought in a revolution with his music, and celebrating his quick come-up, bragging that he's won the world in just 2 years. That track would be followed by Tibian Dapat, which today sits at over 240 million views. Interestingly, this track actually featured English subtitles hard-coded onto the video, a major signal that Sidhu was trying to broaden his appeal to an international audience in a way that he'd never done before. And interestingly, this song was leaning heavily into the revolutionary theme. The song featured a lot of lyrics alluding to the strength of people in Musa and the Jats' willingness to fight authority, as well as the poor conditions where he's from. Now, the video itself features firearms and military vehicles, the latter of which is something that Muswala wouldn't normally put in his videos, usually opting to show off things like tractors or Range Rovers or G-Wagons. The video also featured a poster from his mother's election campaign, and he raps in the hook about the youth of major cities being crazy about him, and the chorus of the song is basically him saying to envy the Jats is fatal, all while he's being portrayed as a sort of head of the village surrounded by armed guards. And he goes on to rap about having to say bad things and do bad and be surrounded by goons just to get where he is in life. He would also diss the Western entertainment industry, saying the black and white freaks in Hollywood are watching him and copying his moves, even calling out Westerners for doing reactions to his songs. But most interestingly, he would end the track with a
I'm not supposed to be... Wait, hold on, chat. I'm not gonna react to bro music if he... Nah, like, on some serious shit. I ain't gonna react to... Oh, my camera. What the fuck? What the fuck? I ain't gonna react to bro music if he ain't want people, Westerners, reacting to his music, yeah. If y'all really want me to though, I will, but if he really ain't want, you know, Westerners reacting to his shit, I could you know, I respect his wishes, like RIP, you feel what I'm saying? RIP, bro. I respect his wishes if he ain't want Americans reacting to his shit.
the powerful message, saying that Westbury would do bad and be surrounded by goons just to get where he is in life. He would also diss the Western entertainment industry, saying the black and white freaks in Hollywood are watching him and copying his moves, even calling out Westerners for doing reactions to his songs. But most interestingly, he would end the track with a powerful message, saying that he doesn't belong to a noble family and he doesn't have any grandeur to his name, saying that he's just a humble village kid, but despite that, he has powerful people scared of him, and saying that the words from his pen sting people like poison. This was Sidhu's most political song yet, and it really spoke in the revolutionary tone that he'd built up over the years, but this was his most pointed political message by far. And the song resonated amongst the people. It landed at the number 8 spot on Apple's Top 100 India charts. No doubt this was Sidhu honestly reflecting on the feathers that he had ruffled behind the scenes, but he was showing no signs of letting up. In May 2020, Sidhu chose to release his next full-length project, the aptly titled album Snitches Get Stitches. The album received mixed reviews from critics and the public, largely because it was a compilation of mostly unreleased tracks from SoundCloud or songs that had previously leaked online. So he was criticised by fans and critics for a lack of new music, but it turned out that things were much more complicated behind the scenes. Sidhu had wanted to go independent with his music. He was already releasing songs on his own YouTube channel after seemingly leaving a deal with T-Series behind. And allegedly, the Snitches Get Stitches mixtape was a hurried release that happened suddenly amid a disagreement between the Brown Boys record label headed up by Big Bird, who had produced many of Sidhu's early hits, including his biggest song, So High. Things had turned bitter in the group amid a dispute about the song My Block, which was produced by Big Bird. But anyway, following his breakup from the Brown Boys, Sidhu became his own boss and formed his very own record label in August 2020. He named it 5911 Records, after the famous tractor, which is heavily sought after in the Jat community. But sadly, 5911 Records was formed in the midst of turmoil for Sidhu's career, as Sidhu's love of firearms had gotten him into serious trouble again throughout the summer of 2020, this time being charged with numerous gun offences. The first of these cases was filed on May the 4th after a video was released of Sidhu firing an AK-47, which went viral soon after its release.
With police? Oh, okay. I thought he was firing the AK with
Oddly,
police, but
in the
no,
video,
they
which
were
was
saying he
seemingly
in trouble
filmed
with
during the early stages of the COVID-19 lockdowns, Sidhu is clearly in the presence of Indian police while firing the gun.
Oh, no,
the
he is
video
with
itself
police.
was even allegedly filmed on a firing range that belonged to the police in the Barnala district in Punjab. Therefore, this specific case was not only registered against Sidhu, but 8 others, including the police officers who were present during the shooting. During this time, the Punjabi police were coming down on Sidhu with full force, and the very next day, the police from another district in the state called Sangrur filed another case against him for using a 9mm pistol at the Lada Kothi firing range, which is also police property. The cases were then held as
Nigga, why can't you
non-bailable, and a
shoot
special
your gun
team
at
was
the
assembled to
firing
carry out raids to try and catch Sidhu, but he would manage to evade arrest. Interestingly, he was then later found on June the 6th by police from the town of Nabha, located in yet another district of Punjab, Patiala, with him being pulled over in traffic due to tinted windows. But despite being wanted in these 2 other districts, Sidhu would actually be let go, with the local police then releasing a statement claiming it was for the Sangrur and Barnala police to proceed further in their own cases against Sidhu. Now this strange series of circumstances probably says something. Either bad blood between these police departments of different districts, or on the other hand, there might have been a big difference between the higher-ups in law enforcement that were trying to take him down, while at the street level, cops who are possibly big fans of Sidhu may not want to be the ones to put their favourite star in handcuffs. But anyway, at the end of June, Sidhu would finally appear in front of the court in the Sangrur district, with the media reporting that Sidhu had seemingly managed to convince the court to grant him an interim bail on the condition that he would join the investigation within 7 days. And by what appeared to be a major stroke of luck, Sidhu would manage to avoid any jail time on these charges in several districts. But unfortunately, instead of choosing to lay low, Sidhu then chose to release his new song, Sanju, the very next day on the 16th of July, a bold track which was seen as a massive middle finger and protest towards the police. The concept of the song is based on a famous Indian actor, Sanjay Dutt, who was faced with similar gun charges as Sidhu back in the mid-90s. Dutt, who had risen to prominence in Bollywood during the early 90s, was caught purchasing multiple AR rifles from a so-called mafia don named Abu Salam during the so-called 1993 Bombay bombings that followed socio-political unrest in the region. Salam was part of a major crime syndicate called the D Company, who were considered to be while Dutt himself would argue that he had only been considered to be responsible for these recent terrorist attacks, while Dutt himself would argue that he had only been interested in getting the weapons in order to protect his family during these violent times. This was a motive that seemed to resonate with Sidhu too. Now the song itself was a massive success and now sits over 130 million views on YouTube alone, and in keeping with
somebody in the comments told me, I'm sorry I can't remember your name. I be high as a bitch, bro, and I'm sorry. It's not like I disrespect. But somebody, excuse me, somebody in the comments told me that the reason they put like I was joking on them for like not having the right view total in the title, but it's cause they be adding up like all the plays like official video and then uploads from different channels and then the translated version and you feel me, like that's the views from like the English translation of it, the original video, like all type of shit. It's all added up. It's cumulative in the thumbnail. I appreciate you.
Sidhu's deep admiration of Tupac, the track itself has an ominous
y'all
sample
get,
being played throughout, with Tupac saying,
"Oh, it's actually been my bad, y'all. I'm pausing the video a lot, but it's actually been so long since the last part, which I'm so sorry about, y'all. I'm really so sorry about that. I did not mean for it to take this long." But you know what I'm saying? It's summertime now. Make sure y'all on y'all program. You feel me? Get y'all burpees, y'all push-ups, y'all sit-ups. Just work out. You feel me? Make sure y'all working out today and breaking a sweat. And you feel me? Just living that good, healthy life. I got me some diamond push-ups and some regular push-ups and some sit-ups out today. I'll probably, get me some sit-ups and some burpees out tomorrow. Just make sure y'all every day just getting a little bit of, you feel me? A little bit of workout. And it ain't got to be nothing crazy. You feel me?
"They'll never take me alive." Clearly, Sidhu wanted to send a message to both the police and the public, and the music video for the song featured real video material from Sidhu's legal proceedings during his case and even his almost violent run-ins with the paparazzi at that time.
The big news of this village is that a section of General Arms Act has been imposed against Punjabi singer Sidhu Moosewala. He was seen wielding the weapon AK-47.
A case had been filed against the actor Sanjay Dutt.
Sidhu begins the song itself directly mentioning his case and how he's been depicted by
And
the
my
Indian
glasses
media
broke,
as
so
a
we should've
gun-wielding
opened.
menace. Kinda similar to how Tupac was demonized by the media partway through his career during his stint in prison, where he also maintained his innocence.
That's
Anyway,
a
in the
fact.
song, Sidhu makes reference to catching the same sorts of charges as
Pop
Sanjay
spitting
Dutt,
at the
and he claims
police
that a
is so
minimum
classic.
imprisonment is around the corner for him, likely referencing his ongoing cases and an expectation that he would be doing some jail time.
Jay had
Next,
the same
Sidhu mentions
case
how
as
he hasn't
Sanjay
gone
Dutt.
far,
That's
saying he's on the
hard,
run,
though.
but he will take his charges head on and that he hasn't got blood on his mind yet. He continues to explain how the case is bogus and that the lawyers and cops are making a bag off of bringing these charges, going on to say that he'll be taking his appeal up with God. To release a song that's such a blatant protest towards the police in the midst of a serious case while on bail for sure is a pretty crazy move. And as expected, another case was brought against Sidhu not long after this song dropped. The police held that this particular song glorified violence and made it appear that having multiple charges was the
Ew,
sign of
this
being a
dick.
real man. And just as Sidhu had predicted, after releasing the song in Sanju, the police filed a petition to cancel his bail, once again leading to a possible jail time. And they also ensured that no songs would be allowed to be played live if they glorified liquor, drugs, or violence, which unfortunately is most of Sidhu's catalogue out the window. Now, this was the last trace of this case that I could find on the internet, and it appears that Sidhu and the courts eventually came to some sort of settlement agreement, and ultimately he avoided prison time after everything was said and done. But unfortunately for Sidhu, the police wouldn't be the biggest threat, as later in 2020, things would go much further than Sidhu undergoing firearms cases and protesting the police, as the real gangs emerging from the Punjabi underworld would be much more dangerous, and soon Sidhu would find himself on the radar as some of India's most serious gangsters. By the summer of 2020, Sidhu Moosewala had cemented himself as one of India's most buzzing recording artists, as well as having shown the Punjabi music world that lyrics about guns and gangsters could be just as big, hell even bigger, than love songs all about girls. But his gun-toting lifestyle had got him the attention of the police, and soon Sidhu would be in the crosshairs of India's realest gangsters that even the police are scared of. On June the 11th, Sidhu released a song that placed himself into the centre of a deadly war within Punjab. The song was titled Bambina Bol, with another major Punjabi artist named Amrit Maan. The song would appear as a normal Sidhu hit to most fans and listeners, with the track performing extremely well, racking up over 250 million views to this day. But the song's title, Bambina, refers to two things at the same time. The Bambiha is known as the singing of a Jacobin cuckoo bird, often heard when it rains in India, with this bird song being considered a harbinger of a monsoon. And in the song, the bird itself is singing about Sidhu Moosewala and Amrit Maan's praises to the world. The chorus, Bambiha sings, is part of common Punjabi folklore. Basically, the concept of the song is saying that everybody listens to Sidhu and Amrit Maan now, just the same as they would listen to the bird song of a Bambiha. Essentially, they're saying they're the voice of authority, like bosses. Their voices and their songs are a part of the culture, a part of nature, something that happens when it's about to rain. But curiously, in the opening monologue of the track, Amrit Maan warns the listener about something serious, saying that this song they just wrote is going to hit like a slap for some people, possibly a warning for his ops. And as it would turn out, Bambia is also the name of one of India's most notorious gangs. Now, I'll explain who they are in a minute, but before we get to that, let's take a closer look at some of the lyrics of that song that hint as a double entendre between the bird song and the name of the gang that makes this track a low-key gang anthem in disguise. The song would begin with Amrit Man explaining how the police are investigating some murders that have taken place under a tree where the Bambia sings. So he's saying that somebody got killed and the birds are singing like a metaphorical rain is about to come. Man continues, boasting his Jat heritage and how the world is in fear, and of course showing love to his beloved tractors, explaining how his religion is farming, and the video itself would show the singers loading revolvers and riding around with bodies hanging from the trunks of their cars. Something they would even sing about, mentioning how the enemy's leg can be seen hanging out of the trunk, all while the Bambia sings. In the second verse, Man shouts out Sidhu's native block, PB31, the district code of Mansa where he hails from, and he explains the importance of Jats using their village name instead of their own, like Sidhu Moosewala. In Sidhu's verse, he begins by boasting about his various connections from Musa all throughout India and beyond, and praising his beloved 5911 tractor. And he could also be seen roughing up his enemies and even handing them pistols to finish themselves off with. Next, he mentions his 45 caliber pistol being full of ammunition up to his neck, which he brags about will rip open chests. The song then shows a still of a page from a local newspaper in Punjab referring to 3 men who went missing from police custody for horrendous crimes against women. Now this could well have been a shot at the police for allowing such awful criminals to escape, as well as a dig at the lowlives that would do such a heinous crime. But this is where the song begins to take a much deeper meaning, with much darker and dangerous implications for the singers than just a bird song. The song itself is called Bambia Bol, a reference to both the bird song and the gang that has the same name. And during this time, there was a rampant war that was running throughout Punjab between the Bishnoi and the Bambia gangs. Clearly the title of this song and the imagery was related to much more than just a singing bird. Sidhu would warn the listeners that people would be mad at this song and that the bird song before the monsoon was essentially a metaphor for the monsoon of gang violence that was about to unfold. It was later claimed that the Lawrence Bishnoi gang were extremely offended by this song, and it was believed that with this song, Sidhu had actually taken sides and publicly shown his alliance to their sworn enemies, the gang led by Davinder Bambia. The Bambia gang is notorious in India, and videos circulate showing their famous members together toting guns, along with newspapers that circulate posters showing prominent members. Numerous newspaper articles would describe the gang as a small set of around half a dozen associates and friends of the leader, Davinder Singh Sindhu, otherwise known as Davinder Bambia. He was actually a kabaddi player, which is a Punjabi contact sport similar to rugby or American football, but he would eventually lose interest in sports, becoming a shooter and a gangster. In 2010, he founded the notorious gang and ended up getting killed by police in an encounter around 2016 when he was just 26. Now, interestingly, in India, what's known as encounters are where the police take justice into their own hands and finish off the gangsters they've been chasing once and for all. One newspaper article on the killing would gleefully boast that the founder of the Bambias would no longer be able to brag about his crimes on Facebook. But despite his death in 2016, the gang still operates to this day and have continued waging war against their rivals, the Bishnois, all across India and internationally to this very day. And in a strange coincidence, Davinder used to share the same surname as Sidhu, but ultimately ended up changing it to honor his village, just like the reasoning for Moosewala. This is something that was actually hinted towards in lyrics to the song Bambia Bol, and the gang itself is also named after the village that the members reside in, Bambia, which is located in the lower west side of Punjab. Now, not much is known about Davinder specifically, nor are there many images of him other than the select few of him brandishing his favorite pistols. But what is known is that in 2010, when pursuing an arts degree, Davinder Bambia was arrested and jailed for murder in the Moga district of Punjab. The case involved a person who had gotten killed during a scuffle between two groups at Bambia Bai village. Somehow, at just age 21, he would escape prison and form the infamous Bambia gang, going on to cause terror within the Punjab region. This led him to become one of the most wanted Punjabi criminals by 2012, and just like the gangsters in Chicago, he too would boast about his unlawful activities on Facebook. His nickname was Sharpshooter, and he was also named in the murder of student president Rajwinder Singh. He allegedly shot Singh 14 times at a wedding. Davinder Bambia was eventually wanted in over a dozen cases of murder, attempted murders, as well as looting and kidnappings. And other than becoming one of the most wanted gangsters in the region since 2012, this particular gang would also run a serious extortion racket in Chandigarh, Mohali, and Panchkula. Ultimately, in 2016, he would be gunned down by Bathinda police after a standoff over his original 2010 murder charges. Bambia was known to have been very active on his social media. He would often taunt the police about the murders that he was allegedly committing. He would even call for the police to kill him, and he requested they make sure it was him, as he didn't want an innocent person being killed in his name. To this day, this gang is still running at full force and even operating internationally, with cases recently being reported that members are being assassinated in foreign countries such as the Philippines. Sidhu's specific affiliations with the Bambia gang are hard to track, but the song Bambia Bol makes it clear he's kinda repping the set and making an anthem for the gang that millions of people would follow. However, unfortunately for Sidhu, their sworn rivals, the Lawrence Bishnoi gang, would not take this statement lightly. The Bishnoi gang, just like the Bambia gang, are named after their founder and leader, Lawrence Bishnoi. Lawrence Bishnoi comes from the Firozpur district of Punjab, also located in the west of the region, around 105 kilometers from their rivals in Bambia. And funnily enough, Lawrence Bishnoi's father was originally a police officer, but later quit to become a farmer, just like Sidhu's. Residents in his local village said that Bishnoi was a sweet and harmless young man, but as he grew up, it turned out that they couldn't have been any more wrong about this young gangster in the making. Bishnoi lived an ordinary life until he moved to the DAV college in Chandigarh, and here he would take a keen interest in athletics, regularly attending sporting events on the campus. But it was at this college where Bishnoi made dangerous connections that would change his life forever, specifically when he took an interest in the campus politics and met student president Satinderjit Brar, who went by his alias Goldie Brar. Strangely, college became the catalyst for Bishnoi's criminal enterprises, as Lawrence Bishnoi and Goldie Brar would begin terrorizing the college, even attempting to murder other students who got in their way. Bishnoi began his criminal record after a crazy situation over a college election, which just goes to show you how deadly Indian politics can be, even at college level. His friend had stood for campus president, and with the intention to scare Brar's rival in the election, Bishnoi chose to shoot at him with a licensed revolver that was registered to his friend. Clearly, Bishnoi didn't care one bit about the repercussions of his actions, as this was just the first incident of him shooting at students over minor issues at his campus. Following this initial shooting, Bishnoi caught an attempted murder charge which sent him to jail in 2010, but somehow he was bailed after just 2 months. Bishnoi was quick to begin networking behind bars, and he would make some useful criminal ties inside. He had managed to source a supplier for bigger and more expensive firearms in Punjab, but Bishnoi had not learnt his lesson after being released, and just months after being free, he would shoot at another person over this election, this time the rival's brother, as he had managed to win the election over Brar. Again, for some crazy reason, he would be sentenced to just 6 days in prison for this shooting, yet he still managed to use his time to network behind bars, meeting other gangsters such as Davinder Babla, who would end up becoming another partner in crime. He also allegedly struck deals with other gangs, signed up to criminal contracts, and sought the blessing of other high-profile criminals to expand his own empire to new lands. And due to a clear fault in the judiciary system, Bishnoi was allowed to return to the same college after he was released, even after shooting 2 students over a college election. And upon his return, he was immediately involved in several fights and incidents at the college, leading to even more tiny stints in jail. He even had the gall to try and run in an election himself, and with such lenient punishment for his crimes, he was basically allowed to do whatever he wanted. Bishnoi would eventually lose this election too, going on to brutally assault the winner with an iron rod, breaking his legs. He even made plans to murder the winner of this election with 2 pistols. This time, before he could get his revenge, he ended up surrendering to the police, but he was released on bail after just 3 weeks. Yet again, he was allowed back into the college campus, causing even more chaos. He would finally run again in the 2011 election and actually managed to win this time. I mean, the fact that a registered criminal who was actively trying to murder other students was allowed to keep returning to the college and participating in elections is insane. Now look, I don't know if there's some kind of cultural difference here, or a reason they don't take these kind of crimes so seriously, or if he was somehow paying off the cops to just let him off each time, or maybe it just reflects some of the issues with governing the world's most populated country. As a shortage of staff and infrastructure has for a long time been an issue within India, maybe there's just too many people doing too many things to control what these gangsters are up to. But anyway, Bishnoi began to then spread his influence across to other colleges while still participating in and organising violent crime. And again, by the end of the year, he was back in jail. But unsurprisingly, the Indian police granted him another bail after just 5 months. I mean, the fact that he was given such cushy treatment with such a violent record is astonishing. And it was reported at that point he wanted to continue expanding his violent enterprise to other colleges upon getting out of jail. After 2012, Bishnoi had graduated, but kept a strong presence over the political scene in the college. He would encourage his younger members to run in elections and dishing out the same violent treatment to their rivals. At this point, the gang began racking up enemies and started
raising a little team of menaces. Nigga said, hey, y'all see my actions? Go do the same shit I do. You feel what I'm saying? Nigga raising a whole team of little sass.
Creating an arsenal of weapons. They sourced the illegal guns from Bihar and Madhya Pradesh states in India, and as the police were seemingly in no rush to end Bishnoi's spree of violence, he would eventually graduate from serious assaults and failed shootings to full-blown murders. At the request of his friend Karambir, Bishnoi assassinated a candidate who was standing against his friend's cousin in an election on voting day. After that, there was no turning back, and Bishnoi began murdering several rivals after his introduction into the illegal liquor industry. But his dealings in the streets would unfortunately catch up to his family. Eventually, his cousin would end up getting killed, killed after a dispute with a wine shop owner, which Bishnoi would respond to, creating a hit list of all of the people involved and sliding to get his revenge, but ultimately being stopped by police before he could complete his get back. But it would seem that someone else in the gang actually finished the job and killed another person connected to that murder. Bishnoi would ultimately end up receiving his first big sentence after raiding a police checkpoint and shooting at the police. But even then, he was only sentenced to a few years, during which time he used his energy to plot to kill his rivals and the witnesses in this case. By this point, it was said that Lawrence Bishnoi had grown his enterprise to up to 700 members or sharpshooters, and by 2016, he was seeking the blessings of gangsters in Delhi to expand his territory into the nation's capital. By this point, the Bishnoi gang was becoming infamous all over India. However, in 2018, he would take things to another level. In an interview from jail, Bishnoi swore that he would murder Bollywood A-list actor Salman Khan. This was due to a controversy over the actor hunting and killing a black buck back in 1998, but he wasn't charged until 2018. The black buck is seen as sacred by the Bishnoi community, and this beef is seemingly still frying because as recently as April 2024, 2 people were arrested for shooting up Salman Khan's home. With all of that considered, Lawrence Bishnoi is clearly a fearless kingpin with criminal influence over a large part of India, and his affiliate Goldie Brar is certainly not anyone to play with. And so with his song Bambia, Sidhu had created an anthem for that gang's ops and potentially angered a very dangerous set of political gangsters. But for now, this conflict remains stagnant. As we've already learned, there's clearly a deep overlap between the Indian gangster underworld and the political elections that place people in power there, and it would seem that politics in many ways was just as dangerous as the gang world, with these two being intrinsically linked. And as 2020 went on, we saw a complete shift in nature for Sidhu's career, as gangs and violence would not be the only dangerous territory that Sidhu would walk, and as the year became one of the most significant in modern history for Punjabi and especially Jat people, because protests and civil unrest would break out in the community that Sidhu had emerged from. And going forward, Sidhu would become increasingly political in the hopes to take charge of his community, with the subsequent power struggles potentially being the catalyst for these gangs to want to take this revolutionary Sidhu Moosewala out for good.
Y'all know that's real.
On the 9th of August 2020, the Indian farmers' protest began, a protest that saw hundreds of thousands of people taking to the streets of India, far from Punjab, to protest the Farmers' Bill or anti-farm law. Civil unrest would break out in the community that Sidhu had emerged from, and going forward, Sidhu would become increasingly political in the hopes to take charge of his community, with the subsequent power struggles potentially being the catalyst for these gangs to want to take this revolutionary Sidhu Moosewala out for good.
What y'all call them tractors, bro? Y'all call them the 5911s or the 5,900?
On the 9th of August 2020, the Indian farmers' protest began, a protest that saw hundreds of thousands of people taking to the streets of India, far from Punjab, to protest the Farmers' Bill or anti-farm laws put into place by the Indian government. Eventually, the protesters made their way all the way to Delhi, the nation's capital, which is around 400 kilometers south of Punjab. Protests were labeled as the single largest protest in human history, and the protest was specifically against 3 farm acts that were passed by the Parliament of India in September 2020. The acts, often called the Farm Bills, had been described as anti-farmer laws by many farmer unions, as well as politicians from the opposing side of the government.
India's president gave what are farm bills? On September 27th, India's president gave assent. Damn, I can't read. Assent to 3 farm bills that passed by the parliament a week ago. What are the 3 farm bills passed by the government? Farmers, Produce, Trade and Commerce Promotion and Facilitation Bill 2020. Damn, that's why y'all stay in school, y'all. Through this, farmers can enter into written agreements with anyone, including a company, and sell them their produce for a set period of time, as per the contract. In other words, companies can now have contracts with farmers for buying product. What the fuck for buying produce? They can set the price for the produce, the standards and qualities, and other legit.
Protesters claimed that it would leave farmers at the mercy of corporations. Essentially, these changes ruined the market for independent farmers, specifically the Jat people, who Sidhu was often singing about. The protest demanded the creation of a minimum support price bill. This would ensure that the corporations can't control the prices that they were willing to pay the farmers, creating a fair market for the farmers and stopping them from being robbed out of their produce. The union government, however, clapped back and maintained that the laws would make it effortless for farmers to sell their produce directly to big buyers, and stated that these protests protests were based on misinformation. Other reasons for the protest included record levels of farmer suicides and low farmer incomes, with some articles pondering if climate change was the real issue here. Eventually, tens of thousands of people marched towards the Indian capital to protest against these bills, but the protesters were met by police armed with water cannons, tear gas, and they were beaten with batons in an attempt to fend them off. The protest saw police barricading hundreds of miles worth of roads leading to Delhi, and several violent clashes were seen between Indian police and farmers.
Police in India fired tear gas shells at crowds of protesting farmers as they began their march to New Delhi to protest crop prices. The march is just the latest in a series of such protests going back more than 2 years, and it comes months ahead of national elections in which Prime Minister Narendra Modi will seek a third term. Farm unions hope to force the government to make a law committing to provide higher state support or price guarantees. Talks on Monday failed to yield results, with farmers saying that the government was dragging its feet on meeting their demands.
हाँ देखिए किसान कितना पीसफुल है, कुछ भी नहीं हो रहा, फिर भी आप ऊपर क्या बोलते हैं, रॉबर्ट से ऊपर से हंजू गैस फेंके जा रहे हैं, ड्रोन से वो गया आगे 3 लगे और ड्रोन भी रखेंगे। सिचुएशन ये है कि अभी नौजवानों ने इनकी एक लेयर जो है वो पट दी है जो इन्होंने लगाई हुई थी, उसको उखाड़ कर ले गए, एक बैरिकेड को ले गए हैं हमारे नौजवान, और बाकी सब भी जो है उसको भी उखाड़ के सबको ले जाएंगे।
Break that fucking barricade down.
The issue became so mainstream that Punjabi people all around the world began to join in on the protest, even gaining the support of popular celebrities like Rihanna, who publicly tweeted about the situation following the breaches of human rights that the police had used against the protesters. Delhi police would even switch off access to the internet in areas local to the protest, likely to stop any coverage of the issue, as well as attempting to hide the violence that they were dishing out towards the protesters. The protest even saw the farmers storming the historic Red Fort and raising the Sikh flag, the Nishan Sahib. The significance of this flag being raised here is extreme, especially when you consider the history. The Red Fort was originally a Mughal fort.
Damn! Nah, that's, I don't know why that shit just gave me chills. They raised the flag on them fuck niggas.
This flag being raised here is extreme. Force that they were dishing out towards the protesters. The protest even saw the farmers storming the historic Red Fort and raising the Sikh flag, the Nishan Sahib. The significance of this flag being raised here is extreme, especially when you consider the history. The Red Fort was originally a Mughal fort built in the 17th century, but these days it's more of a tourist attraction. But during the Mughal invasion, the Sikh army would go to war with the Mughals, hence the flag being raised here being a major victory, an important symbol and motivating factor behind the protests. But eventually, in November 2021, after over a year of protests,
all my American, my other American viewers, you know what I'm saying? That, for example, that'd be like, that'd basically be like going to the White House and, you feel me, up in like the British flag, you feel what I'm saying? Or going to the motherfucking the Pentagon and up in the motherfucking the English flag, you know what I'm saying? You feel what I'm saying? Like, that's tough as a bitch. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, niggas went to war with niggas, and then all these years later, all of these decades later, all these centuries later, you feel what I'm saying? Niggas came through, like, felt like it was some type of civil unrest or something, felt like it was they rights and they livelihood was getting violated. Niggas stormed that bitch, and you feel me? All right, bet we back to wartime then. Fuck, you feel me? Like, just like how niggas was raiding this fort and raising a flag and you feel me, taking this bitch over, that's how we doing, you feel what I'm saying? That's tough, nigga.
The government would choose to backtrack on their laws, giving in to the protesters' demands, with headlines circulating describing India's Prime Minister Modi as bowing to protesters and repealing the controversial farming laws. But whilst the protests were just starting out in 2020, the people of Punjab began putting pressure on entertainers with mass influence to speak out on the issue and the brutality of the police. However, many chose to stay silent in fear of ruining their place amongst the elite in India and out of fear of upsetting the government. But Sidhu Moosewala, with his his revolutionary spirit, chose to speak up and get involved in the cause. Initially, Sidhu shared his interest and requested to join the protest, but the unions declined his request as they feared his presence would cause a distraction. But by September the 25th, Sidhu chose to begin his own collective, organizing supporters on social media and leading a massive march.
Tough, bro. The march with them niggas, it was like, nah, bro, you too popular, gang. Shit might go crazy, shit might get bad, you too popular, gang. But he was like, man, fuck it, this is what I really believe in.
Chandigarh in Punjab. Now, choosing to join a protest against the Indian government whilst also having a hand in politics was a very dangerous game for Sidhu to play. At this point,
like
he was actively trying to bring about
really
revolution
in
public profile to rally the people against the system. This was truly a brave move, but this shows the lengths that Sidhu was willing to go to stand with his people, choosing to stand up for what he believed in, no matter what the consequences were. On the 26th of December 2020, Sidhu released a political song entitled Punjab My Motherland in support of the farmers' protest. The song would also show Sidhu's support for the controversial Khalistan movement. Khalistan is the name of a proposed independent state that many Sikh Punjabis want to bring about in India. The idea is to separate the Punjab region from India and forming its own country named Khalistan. Due to Punjab being a very resourceful region due to its farmland, India at large has always pushed back against the idea of an independent Khalistan. For Sidhu to show his support to the controversial and revolutionary cause was a very bold move at the time, as the Indian government has not been shy to assassinate anybody who dissents with enough influence, with a very recent case that found the Indian government had allegedly assassinated a Canadian national in Canada just for advocating for the independent state of Khalistan. The music video for that song, Punjab, My Motherland, features a compilation of multiple painful eras in Punjabi and Sikh recent history, such as showing the bullet holes left from the Jallianwala Bagh massacre and the 1984 anti-Sikh riots, as well as many beloved Sikh warriors showing the strength of Sidhu's people. Other clips of violence against protesters would also be shown in the video, and the song begins with a speech from Bapur Singh Malbir, a man who delivered a powerful speech calling for an independent Sikh state of Khalistan to be established. The speech references the power of taking up arms, claiming without sovereignty there's no justice. Sidhu begins the song referencing a very controversial figure in India who's beloved by the Sikhs, Saint Jarnail Singh Bhindranwale, a man who aimed to spread the original values of Sikhism that he believed had been polluted over centuries by the corrupt Indian government. He was also a key figure in the Khalistan movement. Bhindranwale wanted freedom and basic human rights for his people, but he was demonized by the media and government and was labeled as a terrorist. Sidhu would continue singing on the song that he can't be forcefully held down by the government, just like the state of Kashmir. Now, the song is actually
labeled us as terrorists, and then they drop a bomb on us, and they telling the media to lie to us. Damn, I can't remember how the rest of that shit go, but y'all hear it, bro. That's really how they do, bro. They tell the media tell lies to the public and try to paint this bad narrative. Cause everything in life about narratives, bro. Everything in life about the optics in the narrative, bro. Whatever narrative can get pushed, bro, that's the truth. Whatever narrative can get pushed the hardest, bro, that's the truth. You feel me? That's the truth of the situation. Oh, my beard look great right there. Am I geeking? Oh, my beard look great, huh? Getting too old for this shit, man. Say, but and then they drop a bomb on us. You feel me? Like they tell lies about us, and then they do us cruddy. Like that's really how they do it, bro. Especially if you're a revolutionary or if you just a thinker. Fuck, that's all you gotta be. That's all you gotta be for the government to hate you. Just use your brain. That's all you gotta do. And now the government is against you. That's fucked up, ain't it? Yeah, that's fucked up, man.
Delivered from the perspective of Punjab itself. So Sidhu is singing like he actually is the nation of Punjab, and he's singing about how that region itself can't be held down by the government. During this time, inhabitants of the region felt oppressed by the Indian government, and Sidhu would even reference the Sikh missiles who raided and conquered Delhi, almost putting up a sign to wage war against the Indian government. And Sidhu would continue to boast of Punjab's history and how the region would always succeed in the face of adversity, referencing an ex-ruler of the region who had battled with Alexander the Great. Sidhu then takes aim at the Delhi police, ordering them to put down their batons, and warning the police that the farmers who are protesting may return to their roots of the Sikh Khalsa army. Now, the Sikh Khalsa army was the military force that operated in the Sikh Empire during the late 1700s and late 1800s. In the next verse, Sidhu then mentions how Delhi has always been anti-Sikh. He then says in the third person, from the perspective of Punjab, that Sidhu will chew up the state like a mango seed. Now, what he's doing with this song is crazy if you really think about it. He's taking on the persona of the Punjab region itself and literally telling the people to rise up in this song. Now, this was a bold, brave, and arguably reckless move, as going directly against the Indian government in this way is a far cry from similar protesting in a Western country. Many conspiracies have spread over the years regarding the Indian government allegedly assassinating numerous celebrities that chose to stand up for the farmers and the Sikhs. One example is the former actor turned activist Deep Sidhu. The former actor was one of the main pillars in the farmers' protests, but mysteriously in early 2022, he was found dead in a car wreckage, and many people believe that foul play may have been involved. Now, there were allegations that the police may have planted evidence to make it appear that Deep Sidhu was intoxicated whilst he was driving, but the farmers believe that he was assassinated due to being such a large figure in the movement against the government who held too much influence, with some Twitter accounts even predicting the assassination by the Indian government before it had even happened. This incident shone a light on the difficult relationship between the public, the government, and media outlets such as
they
Z News.
called out that shit too. Don't be surprised if they start to say he was on drugs / alcohol to malign his image and tarnish his legacy. They've used these tactics before and will try again. Real fucking rap. Hold
on the difficult relationship between the public, the government, and media outlets.
Hold on. They not talking. India government? They is not talking. I do not agree with what these niggas talking about. I do not co-sign what these niggas talking about. I do not want to be assassinated. Let's put all the cards on the table. Let's talk the facts. I don't want to die, folks. I'm the overwhoopy man. I just be high shit trolling. Don't send them hitters for my head now. Oh shit, I can't even drop this, y'all. Oh, they gonna kill me. Y'all better ride for me. Y'all better ride for me when I die. I'ma die behind this shit. I will die behind this shit. Them niggas don't play. Y'all better ride behind me. Be like, yeah, that GO3 nigga. That GO3 nigga, he was a legend. He was a young legend.
Z News is a mainstream media outlet within India that has reportedly been labelled as biased towards the government, with petitions created online requesting the platform be taken down for misleading and biased journalism in favour of the authorities. Soon after the incident, it was circulated that alcohol was found in Deep Sidhu's car, but the video of the supposed alcohol in the car was then fact-checked by an independent news company who had videos from immediate witnesses to the wreckage who claimed that there was no bottles of alcohol in sight. Further discrepancies would come to light after the Delhi police began retracting their own statements as to how this crash occurred, as well as differing statements regarding the tyre marks behind the wreckage, which allegedly indicated a hard break had taken place. Now, with the track record of the Indian government and the choices that Sidhu had made in 2020 to represent his people, moving into 2021, Sidhu would need to watch his back at every corner. He was calling upon his people to rise up and establish a breakaway state in songs with hundreds of millions of views. This went far beyond anything Tupac ever put out and was a genuine call for his people to revolt. Perhaps Sidhu didn't even realise the power of his own voice, but going forward, he would be on the radar as one of the most serious and dangerous people in Indian society. But he was also a musician first, and moving into 2021, he would continue doing what he does best, releasing music that captivated his people. In 2021, Sidhu began releasing singles ahead of his new album, The Moose Tape. This album featured more production from Steel Bangles and had several UK features such as Stefflon Don, Tion Wayne, and Morrison. But during this massive rollout, Sidhu had also begun producing and starring in his own movies, two of which were released in 2021. Just like Tupac, Sidhu also indulged in many of the other arts beyond music, appearing as an actor in several prominent films. His main ones, Musa Jat and Yes I Am Student, were both released in 2021. Both films tell the stories of struggles throughout the different parts of Sidhu's life, such as Yes I Am Student, documenting the struggles of being an international student and giving insight into the time that Sidhu spent in Canada whilst he was studying. Meanwhile, the film Musa Jat is of course a story centered around a working class Jat man hailing from Sidhu's native village of Musa. But then, on May the 14th, 2021, Sidhu would take to his Instagram to preview the release of his upcoming album Moose Tape, and the next day, Sidhu released that highly anticipated album Moose Tape online. It had 32 tracks on the tracklist, and this was by far Sidhu's most diverse and experimental album yet, with multiple sounds being explored, from Bhangra to Punjabi trap music, and even elements of UK drill. But the album also featured some of Sidhu's most introspective songs to date, such as the track 295. 295 is one of Sidhu's most played songs, with over 267 million streams on Spotify and over 500 million views on YouTube. The song 295 is widely considered Sidhu's most progressive piece, as on the track he even pushes back against the Sikh establishment punishment. The song was written in retaliation to the earlier criticism Sidhu had received during the controversy surrounding his song Jati Jion Mor Wagi. Now that song and the backlash within the Sikh community resulted in a section 295 being filed in the Indian Penal Code against Sidhu, essentially a charge of insulting the religion after he rapped about sacred Sikh religious figures in his song. This new song 295 is written from Sidhu's father's perspective during the time that people were protesting in front of his house in the middle of that controversy. The song begins with Sidhu's father questioning him as to why he's so upset, and rapping from the perspective of his father, Sidhu would question the real motives of the protesters who were against him, accusing some of them of just looking for money. Now, Sidhu was encouraging his listeners to speak the truth, telling them that if they ran into trouble, then they were doing something right. However, even though Sidhu was addressing the listener, he was the protagonist of the 295 story himself. The song kind of cast Sidhu as the victim of unfair criticism from the Sikh community, and it would even use the same religious symbolism that he appeared to be challenging, referencing people wearing turbans throwing criticism at him but who are not fully baptized, essentially calling the people hating on him hypocrites. The song also aimed to provoke political leaders who are corrupt, who Sidhu said would be punished. Now, Sidhu's previously discussed that he understands the impact his lyrical content will have on the listener, therefore he's very calculated with the choice of topics that he chooses to put in his music.
Everyone is focusing on guns in music.
Do you think songs affect people's mindset?
Yes, they do and won't deny it.
But how do you manage that impact?
How do you neutralize it with proper guidance? But you cannot guide everyone unless you have a proper system of education and guidance.
That's fact.
So,
That's
Moose
fact.
Tape had controversial political points to make, but Moose Tape was also a very experimental album that aimed to get widespread international appeal. Now, not every song was so introspective, as it featured the more ignorant and braggadocious style songs that we all love as fans of Western rap. In fact, one of my favourite Sidhu songs ever was also on the Moose Tape, the track IDGAF, with the UK's own certified gangster rapper Morrison appearing. IDGAF had a booming beat and boastful bars, and was a quintessential Western rap track. Sidhu would actually even rap the chorus of the song in a mixture of both English and Punjabi, basically rapping something crazy that he's done in Punjabi, then following that up in English saying he doesn't even give an F about it. For example, Sidhu would boast about his big industry connections, mentioning the track that he's on the phone chatting to Drake, but that's not even a big deal to him, and he doesn't give an F. Prophetically, elsewhere on the chorus, Sidhu would even foreshadow his own tragic destiny, comparing himself to the late great Nipsey Hussle, rapping that the lifestyle he's living means that he has to die like Nipsey, but once again, he doesn't give an F. And then, one of my favourite UK rappers, Morrison, hops on the track with a verse that showed he had truly done his homework on Sidhu's culture. Morrison would rap about being knee-deep in the trap house and cutting down crops like a Jat from Sidhu's hometown, as well as busting more guns than the previously mentioned Indian shooter Sanjay Dutt. Morrison will rap about how he's a gangster from England, but he rolls with Indian gangsters, and it's a true banger. And the project featured other stars of the UK trap and drill scene who were indeed certified in the streets, like the banger of a track that features N9's Tion Wayne, titled Celebrity Killer, another collaboration that didn't disappoint and was produced by Steel Bangles. The music video was even filmed in the iconic Forest Gate estate in East London, the original hometown of UK savage CB, who is now in jail riding a life sentence for aiming a shotgun at the police. And grime legend DEE also makes a random appearance in the video. On the track, Sidhu was on straight gangster business, singing about his Mauser pistol hanging from his jeans, as well as mentioning that where he is, death follows, and threatening his enemies, with many lyrics referencing spraying up cars with bullets, and how his enemies are given their signature with hollow point bullets to the head. Sidhu also flexes his political influence, saying that whichever party he favours will get praise. Tion Wayne then gives Sidhu a slick verse in English with his signature flow and all the expected lyrics and references to things like puncturing his ops' lungs with a knife. The song and video was a banger, and featuring one of the top charting UK drill rappers and filming in a notorious London hood really made outsiders respect Sidhu's gangster. Even in his foreign tongue and an unconventional style of rapping, UK rap and drill fans would still be hyped by how hard Sidhu's verse went, even though they couldn't understand a word of it. So the Moose Tape was a roaring success for Sidhu Moosewala. The tape quickly passed 1 billion streams on Spotify, an achievement that most Western rappers can only dream of. Sidhu Moosewala was in motion as one of Punjabi music's biggest stars, but behind the music, his political ambitions were growing too, and by the end of 2021, Sidhu made a decision that at the time caused many of his Sikh fans to turn their backs on him, and soon he would be jumping into politics with both feet, and unfortunately making himself a huge target in the process. By the end of 2021, Sidhu Moosewala had conquered the music world, with billions of streams to his name and classic projects in the bag, but behind the music, he had ambitions of much more than just entertaining. He was incredibly vocal during the farmers' protests and used his music as an outlet for the feelings on the streets. And clearly, deep down, he wanted to bring about change in India through politics. So after helping his mother campaign in 2018, eventually it would be time for Sidhu to launch a campaign of his own. So on the 3rd of December 2021, Sidhu joined Indian National Congress, and he was set to contest in the 2022 Punjab Legislative Assembly elections. He launched his political career in the presence of Chief Minister Charanjit Singh Channi and PPCC President Navjot Singh Sidhu. With this support and backing, as well as his own popularity as a pop star in Punjabi music, Sidhu's campaign was looking like an easy win.
Popular Punjabi singer and rapper Sidhu Moosewala joined the Congress on Friday ahead of the assembly polls early next year. Moosewala joined the party in the presence of Chief Minister Charanjit Singh Channi and State Congress Chief Navjot Singh Sidhu. Sidhu said that Moosewala will contest the upcoming polls. The Congress is likely to field Moosewala from Mansa or Bhatinda. After joining the Congress, Moosewala said he had started his music career 4 years ago, but was now ready to take a new step in his life.
From the beginning, I was coming from the village. We were raised in ordinary families. God gave us a lot of progress. We went to the same house. When we were among the people, when then name of a child. From a normal family in a normal village was mentioned. The people who were around started expecting from him.
However, after announcing his entry into the political arena, something unexpected.
Basically said, you know what I'm saying? I grew up, just, normal, poor, on the block. But now that as I've grown up and as I've become into this, powerful celebrity with a voice, you feel me? They expect more from me. It's more I gotta do. I gotta do more to upkeep my community, to uphold my community. You feel what I'm saying? Even though I started off just like you, I was blessed with this platform, so now I gotta, I gotta speak for my people. That shit. That shit real.
As many fans of Sidhu were shocked that their favourite gun-toting gangster rapper was suddenly trying to become part of the system. But even more shocking to many was a departure from his usually firm principles as a Sikh, as the Congress party he was set to join had historically been seen as an enemy of the Sikh religion, as they were in power during the 1984 Sikh genocide and allowed Operation Blue Star to go ahead. Operation Blue Star was the code name for the attack on the Sikhs' most holy building, the Golden Temple, or Harmandir Sahib. The aim was to remove the leader of a Sikh religious group named Jarnail Singh Bhindranwale. Jarnail Singh Bhindranwale was the leader of the Damdami Taksal, a Sikh religious group based in Punjab, India in the late 1970s and early 1980s. Bhindranwale carried heavy influence amongst many Sikh youth in Punjab during this time as the leader of Taksal, and he spread the original values of Sikhism and persuaded people young and old to follow the original rules and tenets of the religion, and he demanded freedom and basic human rights for the Sikhs. Now, he hadn't been on record in support of the creation of the Sikh-based state of Khalistan in Punjab, but he was apparently not opposed to it either. Subsequently, he was largely demonized by the media as a separatist and terrorist, yet all he was really pleading for was the right of the Sikh people. And on June the 1st, as he refused to leave the premises of the Golden Temple, the Indian government launched an onslaught against anyone inside, killing thousands and destroying the holy site.
June 6, 1984, the sound of gunfire disrupted the usual peace in the corridors of the Golden Temple. The holiest shrine of the Sikhs had become home to terrorists and goons, armed with heavy ammunition and artillery. Jarnail Singh Bhindranwale, head of the Damdami...
They really gonna call them terrorists and goons? And saying they got ammunition? Yeah, that's their religion. They supposed to keep a weapon. It's saying in their religion. They at their religious spot, bro. They at they whatchamacallit, bro. They at, what's the place, like, wherever you pray at. You feel what I'm saying? I'm sorry, yeah. But they at their spot. You feel what I'm saying? They at their spot practicing their religion. How you gonna call them terrorists and goons? That's crazy. Hey, wow.
Goons, armed with heavy ammunition and artillery. Jarnail Singh Bhindranwale, head of the Damdami Taksal, along with his 600-odd supporters, had been hiding in the temple for over a year. By the time the operation ended, he had been eliminated. The order to carry out what was called Operation Blue Star had come from then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. She was clear: flush out terrorists from the Golden Temple. The operation was codenamed Blue Star. It was the Indian Army's biggest operation within the country. Indira Gandhi was criticized by many for Operation Blue Star. Even though the leader Jarnail Singh Bhindranwale was eliminated, tensions continued to run high in Punjab. All of it came to head on 31st October 1984. Prime Minister Indira Gandhi was shot dead by her own Sikh bodyguards for ordering the operation. That in turn...
Bro, she had Sikh bodyguards and did some shit like that? What the fuck?
By her
You
own
wanted
Sikh
to
bodyguards
die.
for ordering the operation.
Dickhead?
That in
Like, no
turn led to a
disrespect,
chain
but
of
you wanted
events.
to die.
There were anti-Sikh riots in Delhi and other cities. It took years before Punjab could return to normal, and even after 35 years, the wounds of that period are still fresh in the minds of those who were witness to the atrocities and violence.
In the attack, around 5,000 innocent people were killed, men, women and children. Bullets, artillery and rockets were all used on innocent pilgrims who were visiting their holy place. Essentially, the magnitude of this attack would be the same as if the army were to attack the Vatican. And in retaliation to Operation Blue Star, the Prime Minister of India at the time, Indira Gandhi, was assassinated by her 2 Sikh bodyguards for allowing the operation. Following the assassination, the 1984 anti-Sikh riots then took place, with the Congress Party openly encouraging the violence against the Sikh people. Decades had passed without any justice for these incidents, and even today, the matter is mostly ignored, with just one main arrest of a Congress leader for supposedly inciting the violence. Even recently, a UK national, Jagtar Singh Johal, was arrested without charge and has been subject to police brutality and torture by the Indian government for spreading awareness about the issue. To this day, he has still not been released, and the UK government is seemingly also doing nothing about it. That's a whole lot of history, and I'll be honest, I'm not that deeply educated in Indian political history, so I gotta shout out my researcher Gav, who helped me write this story and taught me through a lot of the history that I wasn't aware of when we started looking into this. But I say all of that to say, the fact that Sidhu wanted to align himself with this particular party disappointed and enraged many of his Sikh and Punjabi fans, many of whom considered him a voice of the people, but this party ultimately didn't align with their views at all. To some fans, this was literally like Sidhu joining forces with the Ops, and even more surprising when considering how much Sidhu has previously spoken up for Sikh issues in the past, especially in his music, it just didn't make sense to a lot of people. Now, Sidhu reacted to the criticism in an attempt to explain his choices, suggesting to fans that all political parties are tainted in some form and that he simply had to choose the lesser of the evils in order to take a step forward and break into politics. Sidhu was then asked about whether Operation Blue Star had had an effect on him, and Sidhu shared his disdain for the actions carried out by Congress in 1984, actually admitting that he believed the actions of the party were wrong and caused countless people trauma and immeasurable loss.
Does the 1984 Operation Blue Star still have an impact on you?
Who has not been impacted by it? Even though I joined Congress, I will still say the party was wrong. With that mistake in those times, countless people lost so much. How many people died, and then the Prime Minister was killed. Such was the atmosphere that was created at that time. I believe Punjab would have been 60 to 70 years ahead if such events did not take place.
Sidhu then delves into even more controversial territory as he leads the conversation towards Khalistan, the nation-state that many Sikh people hoped would be established in the original partition between India and Pakistan in 1947. That never happened, and many Sikh and Punjabi people still have the desire to establish their own state. This conversation today is almost seen as a taboo topic in India based on the history of senseless violence used to suppress anyone in favour of the proposed country, as well as violence from those who wish to establish it, which is often labelled as terrorism. So Sidhu even talking about this issue was actually very bold, especially when you consider the backlash that he knew he would be getting on his career for speaking openly about such controversial topics. In modern day India, many people have been demonized for opposing the government and wishing for independent sovereignty. And many of the people who do indeed wish for an independent state of Khalistan to be established are often targeted and labeled as separatists or even terrorists, with some suggesting that this is an unfair label to put on everyone who advocates for this cause, despite it allegedly only being a small minority of people who advocate for violence in the name of that cause. Sidhu would explain in his interview that the media has the whole idea wrong and that the term Khalistan actually refers to a peaceful utopia.
What taunts are you talking about?
They taunt us by saying we are Khalistani people, but we still have not fully understood the true meaning of Khalistani. The meaning of Khalistan
You
is...
mean that empire?
Yes, that empire. A kingdom where people respected the Guru and thought twice before committing any sins. Where people earn an honest living with their hands. Where people fully embrace God's will. Where not even a leaf moves with order. That is what we consider Khalistan. Wishing for such Khalistan is a bad thing. People are not aware of a lot of things when propaganda gets involved. I don't know a lot of things either.
That's facts.
But I am reading a lot of books now.
People are not aware of a lot of things when propaganda gets involved. That's facts.
But from what my understanding is, we need to build an administration like Maharaja Ranjit Singh that will not discriminate on the basis of religion, where everyone, including Hindus, Muslims and Sikhs, can be brothers. When I see Shiv Sena fight Singhs, what do you think is making them fight? Just a handful of people. So there is a need for us to create a system. Kelis means pure and Sten means place. Who is going to make this pure place? We would have to make it.
The day after his entry into the Congress Party, Sidhu posted on Instagram, posing in front of a commercial agricultural vehicle in traditional attire, essentially saying that the circumstances had forced him to change, inferring that he's had to adapt his beliefs in order to get into politics and hopefully bring about change, going on to suggest that he has plans to clean up the roads and make the streets safe now that he's getting into politics. From the end of 2021, Sidhu began to get involved heavily with local and national politics in India, and by the start of 2022, Sidhu's campaign was in full swing, and posters began circulating around his home city of Mansa. On the 15th of February 2022, Sidhu held his first election rally, but things didn't exactly get off to the best start. His tattoos and attire were all being torn apart by the public, which apparently upset Sidhu, as he sees his public persona as a pop star as completely different to how he would behave as a politician.
I was very emotional during elections. People would make comments about Sanju's picture on my tractor, tattoos on my arms. They used to ask me questions like they're interviewing me for a marriage proposal, like how they ask if the boy does any drugs or not.
But Sidhu didn't let any detractors slow him down, and as the weeks went on, he'd roll up his sleeves and get active in the streets, being seen in the streets surrounded by people campaigning on behalf of his political movement. However, in the midst of his campaigning, disaster struck, and suddenly Sidhu was in hot water for a campaign violation. In the election campaign, Sidhu was alleged to have violated the election code of conduct by a public servant by holding campaign demonstrations door to door in the Mansa constituency after the end of the allotted duration of 6 p.m, which was apparently the latest that you could canvass. This resulted in a case being filed against him under section 188 of the Indian Penal Code, essentially for disobedience by a public servant that causes annoyance to the people. Clearly, whoever was in charge was making sure that Sidhu was held responsible for even the slightest violation. In the end, unfortunately, despite his best efforts, on the 20th of February, it was reported that Sidhu had been defeated in the polls by a candidate from the AAP party named Vijay Singla. The winner from AAP, or Aam Aadmi Party, Vijay Singla, had gained 100,023 votes, with Sidhu gaining only 36,700 in the Mansa constituency, a large loss with a gap of around 63,323 votes. Initially, Sidhu would react to the loss with class in an interview where he claimed that he was resilient and that this was not the end, but really the beginning of what he hoped would be future political success.
So it's not about that. To get into politics was a voice of mind, and I did it solely for that. At the end, if people didn't agree with it, that's fine. I will try next time.
In your songs, you talk about your character as someone who cannot be suppressed. Do you feel your defeat in the elections in your mind? Was you being suppressed?
No, when I say I cannot be suppressed, I mean I keep moving. Keep moving towards your aim, towards your goal. One type of depression is when you feel down and give up. Depression is a climatic change in our behavior. Everyone goes through it. I felt it too, and I lost the elections. But if you lose once, it doesn't mean you can never win. I have lost many times before, even in my own profession. But I also achieved such victories that the entire world knows about it too. So this was the first defeat in this field. I have said this before, not all bricks have to be used for the palace walls. Some are used for the foundation. I laid these for the foundations. The next ones will build the palace.
Not all bricks need to be used for the palace walls. Some need to be used for the foundation. Oh my God, I gotta put that in my shit. I gotta put that in my little shit where I keep all my hard ass quotes. That's one of them ones. Look, even the Lord is a man of war. You feel me? There's opportunity when living lost. I discover myself when I fall short. Judge a man's character by his friends, by the friends that he keeps around, and of the weight of the man who he is enemies with. I gotta add this one. This a new one I'm adding to that list. Hold on. Alright, I got it. Not all bricks had to be used for the palace walls. Some are used for the foundation. Alright, I got it.
Some are used for the foundation. I laid these for the foundations. The next ones will build the palace.
Did you feel at some point that you shouldn't have joined politics? Or that you wasn't built for this?
I did feel it when our own people whom you stood up to support start mocking you by saying, look, he lost, or they are towing 5911 tractor. That's the time I questioned myself. I stood for these people, those who were laughing at my loss. What was the need for me to take a stand for them? I stood for them. The same people mocked me saying, look, Moosewala is finished now. What was the need for Moosewala to do all this? That was the moment I felt all this. But I reminded myself to keep moving and not be suppressed.
Sidhu would then choose to address the election loss in his next single ahead of the release of his next EP, dropping a track called Scapegoat. The artwork itself was a massive middle finger to Sidhu's recent haters, and you can tell that Sidhu is furious on the track, angrily biting back at every single person who criticized him during his run for the Congress Party. On Scapegoat, Sidhu pulls no punches and even goes at his own audience, the government, and starts up new beef with famous singers. Sidhu begins the track wasting no time, straight away addressing the criticism of him choosing the wrong party and losing the election, clapping back, claiming that if the party was so wrong, then why did they win in the past? Painting a picture that suggests that Sidhu had chosen them because he believed they would be the most likely route to winning the election. Sidhu went on to say that he clearly felt betrayed by his own people, questioning them directly as to why they would vote for that party 3 times before, but when he runs for them, they lose. Sidhu would then call out his haters, saying if they voted for that party 3 times before, then they're good, but now he's running for them, he's getting hate. Asking the audience directly who elected whose government, pointing the finger at them and saying that the so-called bad party wasn't so bad when they won the last 3 elections. Sidhu would go on to vent how it's hypocritical to call him a traitor of the Sikh religion because when he gave the public the chance to put an actual Sikh in office, they were traitors to him and they didn't vote for him, with Sidhu asking the listener who is the traitor now, then bringing up other important candidates that the community had made lose in the past, calling the electorate two-faced. And he also mentions how these same people had made the farmers they had previously been supporting lose in the election too, because that pro-farming party that they said Sidhu should have joined also lost the election. He would also bring up Operation Blue Star in 1984 again, referencing another former politician who resigned as a sign of protest, before going on to say that the electorate also failed to support Deep Sidhu, the farmers' rights advocate who was mentioned earlier that died in that suspicious road accident. Sidhu would then send shots at Punjabi singer Gary Sandhu, who had claimed that Sidhu was full of ego when he clowned Sidhu for losing the election. Sidhu called him a moron and criticized him for not being able to handle his own relationship with singer Jasmine Sandlas, which apparently ended quickly. Sidhu then questions Gary Sandhu's gangster by saying that there's no point in making comments from behind the screen if you're not going to do something about it. In the next verse, Sidhu discusses the corruption within all political parties, even his own, whilst comparing them to the opposing acolytes, explaining that all the parties are the same, just a different logo. Sidhu then goes on to reference the governing party AAP, who interestingly were the party who removed his personal security later in 2022, claiming that this party got into the parliament and are now minimizing issues important to the Punjab region. Then, in the final verse, Sidhu goes on to explain that he's proud of what he's done for Musa, giving the impoverished people a name and putting the city on the map, whilst also explaining that he has no ill will about losing the election and that it's really just the beginning for him. Sidhu then goes at the people who have turned their backs on him since the polls, comparing the experience to being crucified and saying that he has the blood of a triumphant Sikh and that there are idiots in all chambers of Indian politics. The video then ends with a message for the viewers, asking them to stop putting the blame on others and first reflect on themselves. Scapegoat was Sidhu lashing out at all of his naysayers and setting the record straight after an embarrassing election defeat. But also, this was a tough moment for the Sidhu Moosewala brand. The voice of the Jats, the man who was supposed to stand up for the common man in Musa, arguably sold out some of his most important political principles for a shot at power, and in the end, the whole plan ended in an embarrassing failure. And now, Sidhu was aiming his anger at the very public who supported him to fame in the first place. This was a tough situation for Sidhu to manage, but naturally, music would be the perfect place for him to vent his frustrations. A couple months after his election defeat, on the 25th of April 2022, Sidhu blessed his fans with more music, releasing the No Name EP. The EP contained 5 bangers, which saw Sidhu taking his raps back to his old ways. On the opening track, Never Fold, Sidhu begins his verse by boasting about his criminal past, giving some insight as to when he began getting into trouble with the law, as he sings, "I got my first charge when I was 18, and nowadays claiming that he doesn't use his Range Rover to chase women, inferring that he's instead chasing the ops, and saying that he plays with Magnum revolvers for his enemies rather than roses for women. Sidhu claims that he's known for the weapon on his waist, and how his drum magazine is full of hollow tips, ready for his enemies. In the next verse, Sidhu again begins to discuss his limited time left in his life, believing that his path is leading him to hell, and explaining how his peak and demise will all be in his youth. He would even warn any potential love interests that they will always be in tears, as Sidhu will always be surrounded by danger. The song went on to become one of Sidhu's best performing on the EP, with the audio alone having over 150 million views on YouTube. The next song on the EP was titled Lovesick, and featured Sidhu rapping from a female's perspective who was in love with him, and the song beginning with a snippet from a news report detailing how Sidhu managed to escape the police while being on the run. He then sings from the female perspective, worrying worrying about Sidhu's name always being in the news. And in the second verse, Sidhu raps in a flow faster than he has used any other time in his career, and he would go on to mention how many shooters are trying to kill Sidhu for their 15 minutes of fame. Sidhu was clearly more than aware of the potential threats against him and all the people that wanted him dead in the streets. He would even mention how government officials may leak his location to these people that want to kill him. The next track would be another love song titled Everybody Hurts, which is followed by the UK drill-inspired banger 0 to 100, and the final track, Bloodlust, another gun-toting anthem, with the visuals showing men masked up, loading rifles, and counting money. The video opens with a creepily foreshadowing shot of a bullet in a car windshield, and in the verse, Sidhu raps about shooting his gun and making his ops scared to cross Musa, and he again mentions that his days remaining were numbered, almost as if he knew something was waiting for him around the corner. Regardless, Sidhu clearly didn't let the mishap of the election hold him back, and he would go straight back to dropping fire music for his fans. It was as if Sidhu was going on a similar run as the beginning of his career, dropping banger after banger and flooding the scene with great music. And just the next month, Sidhu released yet another massive single. On the 15th of May 2022, Sidhu would release his track, The Last Ride. The cover art featured the image of Tupac's car after it was tragically shot up during the day of his murder. Once again, an incredibly haunting scene when you know what's coming next. The Last Ride now sits at almost 300 million views and was a certified hit for Sidhu, perhaps for all of the wrong reasons. The West Coast inspired track sees Sidhu toting his pistol and throwing up West Side gang signs, as well as discussing how staying rebellious has not been easy for him. And in the hook, he mentions how he believes he's destined to have his funeral while he's young, even saying that this is prophesized whilst holding a gun to his head. Within 2022, Sidhu mentions this more than ever. He definitely felt that his time was limited and something was lurking around the corner at this point. In the next verse, Sidhu mentions that he has beef with multiple prominent men from regions all over Punjab. But regardless of how numbered his days were, Sidhu was aware that his influence was like something never before seen in Punjab, and saying that he's essentially immortalized by his extensive catalogue of bangers and revolutionary anthems. The Last Ride wasn't Sidhu's last song, but it was certainly an important moment. On the 20th of May, Sidhu dropped yet another one of his biggest songs to date, a track titled Levels, which came with a cover art showing both of Sidhu's diamond-encrusted watches whilst he clutches his custom pistol. The track, now sitting at 224 million views, features Sidhu's best visuals to date. It's clear that his budgets were increasing, and this music video was just like a movie. The song begins with Mike Tyson's epic speech calling out Lennox Lewis, and Sidhu begins the track speaking English, calling his ops broke as F. And in a dig seemingly at the political class he was beefing with, he would mock his enemies for seeking a lifetime pension and using Sidhu's name for prominence, with the hook explaining that whoever they compare to Sidhu, they're not on his level. In the next verse, Sidhu disses yet another artist he once collaborated with, Prem Dillon, from the song Old School, calling him a Jat imitator from Canada, and claims that he's nothing when in front of Sidhu, even calling himself the devil, as well as saying that he dissed him behind his back, questioning the fact that he asked Sidhu to pay him for a verse. Sidhu then continues explaining that anyone who beefs with him is his son, and they got their starts just by speaking about Sidhu. And still not letting up on his original op Karen Aujla, Sidhu claims that he shouldn't have flexed his feature with the West Coast artist YG because he paid him for a verse. From releasing No Name just 1 month prior and dropping 2 massive singles back to back the next month, Sidhu was going on the run of a lifetime, even mentioning on Levels the quick success of his prior EP, and soon rumours were beginning to spread that the next song Sidhu was due to drop might just be his most controversial one yet, calling out the Indian government for the several atrocities carried out against the Sikh and Punjabi people, and speaking on the unlawful holding of Sikh political prisoners and the issues of Punjab's water being stolen by wider India. But unfortunately, that song Levels would end up being the final Sidhu released while he was alive, because soon after the release of that song, the new government, who he lost to at the election, would make a shock announcement that would ultimately wind up bringing about the demise of their latest and most powerful political opponent.
And we're going to get into that in the part 4. Say, nah, I'm going to finish the video.
To the release of his song Levels, there was a sudden announcement that India's AAP government had implemented a new law. On the 27th of May, the party had mysteriously revoked Sidhu Moosewala's personal security team due to a new law aiming to stop VIP treatment. This cut removed the security of 424 prominent personalities in India, including politicians, retired police officers, and religious leaders. The government widely publicized this move, calling it a step towards ending VIP culture. Many AAP leaders also shared on social media the names of the 424 people affected. So not only had they removed the security of a number of high-risk people, likely with serious threats against them, but they then told the whole world that these people no longer had security. The government pretty much gave the drop on Sidhu. This security removal left Sidhu vulnerable and unprotected to imminent threats, essentially leaving him to fend for himself. And just 2 days after this law was implemented, one of the darkest days in modern Punjabi history would strike, as Sidhu Moosewala would finally be caught by his enemies. The day started like any other another. Sidhu was in his hometown of Musa. He had planned to visit the nearby Jawahar K village to visit his aunt. This is a small village in the Mansa district, located just 1 kilometer west from the district headquarters in Mansa, so it was fairly close to Sidhu's house, around a 20-minute drive. Sidhu would leave his home in Musa around 4:30 in the afternoon with his neighbor Gowinder Singh and his cousin Gurpreet Singh. The trio would travel in Sidhu's Mahindra Thar SUV. Sadly, just like the song released weeks prior, this drive would indeed be Sidhu's last ride. As mentioned earlier, Sidhu's security team had been taken away by the government due to the new law against VIP culture, a direct decision by the AAP party, the party he'd fought with and lost to at the election. However, Sidhu's family still had options and would often hire members of the Punjabi police to patrol with them armed. However, for some reason, that day he chose not to take them on that trip, likely due to the fact that Sidhu was reported as saying that he was only traveling close by to where his auntie lived. He probably thought that armed guards weren't necessary for such a regular trip in his local area. In CCTV footage from outside Sidhu's house, we can then see the moment he left the property, at which point he was immediately swarmed by fans who wanted to take pictures. But it would turn out one of these people was not a fan. Instead, they were an affiliate of the Bishnoi gang, using this opportunity to check if Sidhu was protected and drop his location.
Here is the single biggest piece of CCTV evidence that will turn the Moosewala murder probe on its head. India Today has now exclusively accessed the images of gangster recce on singer Sidhu Moosewala just 10 minutes before he was gunned down. The images show the informants of gangsters taking selfies near Moosewala's Thar SUV and then in a very clandestine fashion tipping off gangsters awaiting to pull the trigger. The informants told gangsters that Moosewala had left his home. After the tip-off over Moosewala's movement, the killers had started tailing Moosewala. The contract killers used 2 cars, a Bolero SUV and a Corolla sedan, to gun down the singer.
At this point, the members of the gang were aware that he had no security and no bulletproof vehicle. The member that spotted Sidhu outside of his home would allegedly dial up a team of nearby shooters, giving them the go-ahead to pursue the car, the Mahindra Thar SUV that they identified Sidhu would be driving in. The group of assailants allegedly were in touch with Goldie Brar, and other affiliates of the Bishnoi gang had apparently been tracking Sidhu's location for days and would follow him in a 2-car convoy. They followed behind Sidhu from his village until the SUV eventually entered Jawahar. The group of hitmen were traveling in a Toyota Corolla and a white Bolero SUV. The shooters would use fake license plates on their vehicles, clearly showing that the attack was planned out and they wished to cover their tracks. Soon after entering the village, Sidhu approached a sharp bend around 8 kilometers from his aunt's house, where the shooters quickly sped up to get close to Sidhu's car. And just after turning out of sight from the CCTV camera, the shooters in the white Corolla followed closely behind and opened fire. The first shots reportedly hit the rear end of Sidhu's car, to which he returned fire from his licensed pistol. According to the 2 passengers in the car, Sidhu stuck to his warrior persona and managed to shoot back at the assailants with his pistol, but ultimately this wouldn't be enough to save his life. After the shootout between Sidhu and the occupants of the Corolla, the Bolero SUV overtook Sidhu's car and the occupants begun firing at him with automatic weapons, and the shooters would fire 30 shots indiscriminately into Sidhu's car, specifically with an AN-94 rifle, which are pretty rare in Punjab. Around 19 bullets would hit Sidhu in his head, legs, abdomen and chest, with shots even piercing his lungs and his liver. Both Sidhu's cousin and neighbor were injured in the attack, but most bullets were directed at Sidhu personally. The others were quickly taken to hospital, but Sidhu's wounds had already proved fatal on the scene. A later autopsy report would find that Sidhu had died within 15 minutes of the attack, but to make matters worse, immediately after the shooting stopped, residents of the village would come out to investigate the commotion, arriving to witness a shocking sight no one would have ever expected. The country's biggest gangster rapper, and nearly politician, riddled with bullets all throughout his body and no security in sight. Soon, harrowing videos will begin to circulate online of people who had arrived at the scene filming Sidhu covered in bullet holes. Heartbreakingly, even his sacred turban was removed by bystanders who were trying to hold up his lifeless body. Almost immediately, news of Sidhu's murder would spread like wildfire and was reported to masses in India and all over the world. The Chief Minister of Police would take to Twitter to share that none of the perpetrators of this crime would be spared, but the same question would be heard all over the world. Why would anybody do this? In such a brash daylight attack, India's most prolific star was gunned down, with this being broadcast for the whole world to see. The very same day, police believed they had a lead. Police Chief V.K. Brar made a statement blaming a Canada-based gangster. Sidhu's family immediately pushed back against the police's comments, as they believed it linked Sidhu unfairly to gangs and organised crime. They believed that there was more to the merciless assassination than just a mere display of gang warfare, as Sidhu's family believed that the police had quickly tried to piece together a story without properly investigating. The next day, the chief of police was made to clarify his statement and specified that he never said Sidhu was a gangster or had any specific affiliations. But The chief of police was correct, as just 1 hour after Sidhu's murder, it was clear where to point the finger. Goldie Brar, associate of Lawrence Bishnoi and prominent member of the Bishnoi gang, made a post to Facebook essentially claiming direct responsibility for the murder. Goldie was the original friend of Lawrence Bishnoi and was the man that was shooting at his rivals in the college elections. Goldie, real name Satinderjit Singh, made a post claiming that he had put the hit out on Sidhu and outlined his exact reasoning for this. In the post, he would claim that Sidhu had been involved in the murders of 3 of his friends, suggesting that the police had been protecting him because of his fame and power. The post roughly translates to this: I, along with Sachin Bishnoi, Dataramwale, Lawrence Bishnoi Group, take responsibility for the killing of Sidhu Moosewala. His name came up in connection with the murder of Vicky Midakera and Goldie Brar, and despite this, the police did nothing. Now this post would show—
nutty. That's nutty as shit. Yo, going on the internet and being like, yeah, that's my thing. Yo uploaded a statement. Yo released a statement to claim this thing. Nah, I'm not gonna lie, bro. It's different. It's different. I ain't gonna lie to you. It's different. I ain't even gonna lie, y'all. It's different.
Show that Sidhu Moosewala had in fact been placed into the centre of a gang rivalry and was indeed murdered as a plot to avenge another murdered politician, Vicky Midakera. Vikramjit Singh, aka Vicky Midakera, was a youth Akali Dal leader. This is a Sikh-centric political party within India and is the second oldest party after Congress. Vicky was a resident of Midakera village in Bathinda district, and just like Sidhu Moosewala, he used the name of his village as his surname. He would eventually move to Chandigarh to pursue his college education, where he attended the DAV college. Sources say that he had supported Lawrence Bishnoi during his run when he was contesting as a student leader of Students' Organisations of Punjab University at DAV College. Now, Vicky had no criminal history other than a first information report registered against him at Chandigarh Police Station in 2020. Vicky was actually named as a member of the Bishnoi gang, and he was alleged to have been providing logistics supports to some of the members. These affiliations may well have cost Vicky his life, as on the 7th of August 2021, Vicky Midakera was shot dead in a broad daylight assassination that was caught on surveillance camera. Vicky, aged 33 at the time, was entering his car when 2 masked shooters approached from the left side, unloading their pistols into him at close range. Initially, Vicky runs out of sight from the cameras, where he's then followed and shot dead right by the wall of a local community centre. This would explain his connection to Goldie Brar and a clear motive to kill Sidhu as vengeance for this murder, but many people were confused as to why Sidhu was specifically targeted in this incident. One explanation could be Sidhu's affiliation to their rivals, the Bambia gang, as shortly after Vicky's murder, the Bambia gang had taken full responsibility for the killing. And as mentioned, earlier in 2020, Sidhu had released that song with singer Amrit Man, Bambia Bol, a song praising the Bishnoi's main ops that was seen as escalating the rivalry. Here he is directly referencing the enemies of the Bambia gang, saying that he will break their bones and referring to murder. The song itself was believed to have had a deeper meaning, paying tribute to the slain gangster Davinder Bambia that started the gang. Lawrence Bishnoi at the time was jailed in Delhi's Tihar prison, and he's actually been in prison since 2017 due to various cases. But it appears that he's still been calling shots from behind bars, as during an interrogation with the police, he would apparently shed light onto the motive in Sidhu's murder, as he was called in for an interview after Sidhu was killed. Bishnoi himself believed that Moosewala had provoked the gang through his lyrics, eulogizing their rivals in the Bambia gang with his song. Lawrence Bishnoi said that with that song, Bambia Bol, Sidhu had dared them to attack him in the open. However, the issue runs even deeper than these affiliations in that song, as after Vicky Midakera was murdered, the police had named one of Sidhu's managers, Shaganpreet Singh, as a main conspirator in the murder. 1 month after Sidhu was killed, Shaganpreet was seeking protection from the courts due to threats made against him by the Bishnois and Goldie Brar too. In response to his application, the Punjab police claimed that there was sufficient evidence that places Sidhu's manager as the main conspirator in Vicky Midakera's murder. Allegedly, Shaganpreet Singh had met with 2 others at a Sikh temple and asked them to carry out the murder of Vicky Midakera. The shooters also claimed that Shaganpreet arranged for them to stay at his flat in Karar. However, it was found by the investigative agency that there was no further corroborative evidence that showed any communication between Shaganpreet and the co-accused. Furthermore, Shaganpreet added that he has no connection with the Bambia gang, claiming that he's been targeted for no reason. But coincidentally, soon after Midakera's murder, Shaganpreet had fled to Australia. But regardless of Shaganpreet's involvement, that murder plot was very extensive. The hit was called from several members and associates of the Bambia gang, like Lucky Patial, who was behind bars in an Armenian jail, apparently sending a message to another fugitive named Gandhi, who was on the run in Malaysia. Gandhi had planned and organised the hit, providing weapons and logistical support, and to this day, that case is still unsolved and has never gone to trial, likely due to the fact that the main perpetrators are all locked away in various foreign prisons. But regardless, Goldie Brar and the Bishnoi gang felt betrayed by the system and felt that Midakera's murder went unpunished. So they would choose the target of their retaliation to be Sidhu Moosewala, the most famous gangster rapper who had already dropped a song publicly, shouting out the gang that had killed their friend. So in the following days after May the 29th, police would desperately try and piece together the evidence and find the fleeing group of shooters that killed Sidhu. And by early June, that investigation was well underway, with one single piece of evidence blowing the entire case wide open and leading the police on a cat and mouse chase of the shooters all across India. The first piece of evidence was found 13 kilometers away from the scene of the crime in the Kayala village. This was the abandoned Bolero SUV used in the shooting that overtook Sidhu. Inside the car was a gas station receipt. This receipt was addressed to Fatehabad in the Haryana district, which is around 320 kilometers south of the Punjab region. On the same day, security footage was obtained by local police from the gas station in Haryana. The footage would show the Bolero SUV's movement, showing it going to the gas station and filling up. After investigating the footage further, police managed to identify a suspect as the shooter in the case, Mr. Priyaware Fauji and a 19-year-old named Ankit Sirsa from the Sonipat village. Both were identified as suspected shooters, and on the 6th of June, police recovered another one of the vehicles used by the shooters. It was found that the killers actually used another car, an Alto, which was robbed at gunpoint by the assailants in the Corolla. At a certain point, they chose to swap and abandon the Corolla as it got damaged in the incident and broke down. Ultimately, the Corolla was found the day after Sidhu's murder in the Moga district. It was abandoned in a field with the number plates removed, and there were no weapons or further evidence found in that car. But the Alto that they'd gotten into after abandoning the Corolla was found by tracing the route of the car through CCTV footage, which ultimately led to 5 arrests. And articles were later written about how this banged up getaway car would ultimately be the thing that led the police to the culprits. After these major breakthroughs, the Indian police then embarked on a major 21-day operation to capture the killers, starting on the 13th of June 2022. The operation began when police used technical surveillance to establish that some of the shooters were in the Gujarat region, which is over 1,100 kilometers south from Punjab. Investigators were able to narrow down their search to a 3.5-mile radius in the Mundrapur area, which eventually led them to Baroi village. Baroi is around 2 kilometers from the local city with a population of around 15,000 people. Therefore, seeking out the killers would prove to be more difficult than assumed in such a rural village. It was found that the suspects had rented a room in Baroi using fake IDs. They posed as migrant workers because the local ports would often see lots of men from different regions coming over for work. The investigators were then able to narrow down their search to local rooms that had been rented recently. Investigators were also aware of the physical profile of their suspects, such as their height and build. Now, interestingly, average height actually differs from region to region in India due to the sheer size of the country. People from certain areas are just taller than other people from other areas. It's a thing. So the team of investigators were struggling to pin down the single room in the village that the gang were hiding out in because they were working from a tower. So they chose to patrol the area on scooters, posing as port workers themselves. The authorities were already aware that the suspects were allegedly running an illegal liquor business. Due to Gujarat being a dry state, this fact helped the investigators locate one of the businesses catering to workers in Baroi and the nearby areas. The police then found out that the supply of liquor was being supplied from zones such as Sonipat, which is actually where those 2 shooters that were arrested already were originally from. A few days later, the police received a tip from a family living in close proximity to 3 suspicious men all renting a room together. Sadly, at this point, no arrests were made due to the evidence not being strong enough. But eventually, the police would search the accommodation complex and look specifically for anyone who looked out of place. At that point, they noticed 3 men sitting on a charpai cot, but they were all facing away from the police. However, the police would then notice that the position of the men seemed peculiar for that region of India. The men were sat with one leg folded and the other bent from the knee, which the investigators knew was a style of sitting particular to the Haryana region. The team would also spot that one of the shooters was unusually tall for the area, standing at around 6 feet, as well as having a lighter complexion than the other people around. The third suspect was then spotted coming out of another room, having just bought enough milk for 3 people. As Priyavrat and Kashish had already been spotted in the CCTV from the fuel station, the police had a positive ID and would arrest these men on the spot. They ended up jumping the walls apprehending Keshav, and after finding the other 2 suspects inside the room and catching them, after questioning, it would appear that Keshav had warned the other members about wearing a mask at all times, and he was seemingly aware that they had already all been spotted on CCTV. The 21-day operation proved successful, and the arrest of the shooters swiftly made Indian news. After these arrests were made, the case was getting closer to being fully solved, as suspects shared the details on their communications and planning throughout the whole job. The gang made sure never to call each other and would only speak using open Wi-Fi networks or using dongles, which caused a major challenge for the police to pin down their locations initially. They were apparently all in touch with Goldie Brar, who was in Canada at this point, organising the whole ordeal. Brar would give instructions and locations of where to hide, and the police would eventually find out that initially 7 of the suspects had lived in that room in the Baroi village, but 4 left in the first week of June, narrowly narrowly avoiding arrest. After these 3 arrests, the police moved on to the next targets, Ankit Sirsa and Sachin Biwani. They believed that the 2 were in Chandigarh due to cell phone data. They knew that the police were tracing them, and they moved incredibly cautiously when using their phones, only switching them on for limited time after using public transport and changing their location each time, limiting the scope for the police to trace their whereabouts. But eventually, the pair were traced to a bus station in Delhi on the 3rd of July, where they were arrested. Ankit Sirsa was just 19 years old, and when investigating the suspect's phones, the police found an image of Ankit Sirsa posing with his pistol, sat behind a collection of bullets that spelt out the name Moosewala, with the newspaper headlines later describing him as a desperate shooter. It was found that Sirsa fired 6 rounds at Sidhu from 2 pistols, and he had been the one who had got closest to the rapper in the shooting. But that image of him with the bullets wasn't the only damning evidence found on their phones, as a video from the day of the shooting was later brought to light, showing that the gang of shooters sat together in their car, posing with the pistols, waving the murder weapons around, proudly laughing about the situation. Allegedly, this video had been sent to Goldie Brar. The video was even posted and deleted to Sirsa's Instagram account, a classic example of how self-snitching exists even in India.
These are the attackers of the late Punjabi singer Sidhu Moosewala. In a video, they can be seen celebrating after the murder. The shooters can be seen smiling and waving their guns in front of the camera. 5 people have been seen in this car, and this video has been recovered from one of the shooters. The shooter, who is sitting in the front seat of the car in a blue t-shirt, is Priyavarta Fauji, while the other one in the back seat wearing a checked shirt is Ankit. The video has been recovered from him. Ankit was one of the shooters involved in the killing of Punjabi singer Sidhu Moosewala. He has now been arrested by the special cell of Delhi police along with his accomplice from a terminal in Delhi.
7 shooters for
the
him,
other
man?
shooter who is being arrested is
Lord,
Sachin
they trying to get my boy out
Biwani.
of
He
there.
took the responsibility for harboring 4 of the shooters in the Sidhu Moosewala case.
The following month, further images of the shooters were shared to the public, with the group apparently enjoying a day out to the beach together and posing for the cameras, apparently in celebration of pulling off the murder. Finally, the main perpetrators in Sidhu's murder had all been identified, with some of them being arrested. And over the following months, several encounters would go down between the Bishnoi gang and the police, such as the 4-hour-long standoff with Punjab police that resulted in a group being killed, which included others that had apparently been involved in the murder of Sidhu. And there would be multiple Bishnoi associates arrested internationally. 2 more suspects in Sidhu's murder were arrested in Kenya and Azerbaijan. But even more crazy, in 2023, India Today managed to interview Goldie Brar himself, where he still admits to having had Sidhu killed.
I'm going to cut across to this very breaking news. In fact, Goldie Brar, when speaking to India Today, has also spoken about Moosewala, Sidhu Moosewala. He's admitted that he was the one who got Sidhu Moosewala killed. Gangster Goldie Brar, chilling confessions here, coming part 2, where he says in a big exclusive conversation to India Today that he has killed singer Sidhu Moosewala. This is Goldie Brar's confession number 2, where Brar has said, yes, I did kill Sidhu Moosewala. Goldie Brar further confirming that Sidhu enjoyed unnecessary power and I wanted to teach him a lesson and therefore I got him killed. This is Goldie Brar's confession, a big confession coming in. Right when Sidhu Moosewala was murdered itself, it was Goldie Brar who claimed that attack. He did claim the murder itself, saying that he takes responsibility for it.
During the interview, Goldie described Sidhu as an egotistic, spoiled person who had more money and power than necessary, suggesting that he had misused his influence on the police. Brar said that his gang thought it was necessary to teach Sidhu a lesson because he did personal harm to them and that his mistakes were unforgivable.
Yes, he was an egoistic, spoiled person who had more than necessary money, who had more than necessary political power, police power, which was misused. It was necessary to teach him a lesson. He was taught a lesson, that's all. Yes, he has done some personal harm to us. He has made such mistakes which were not worthy of forgiveness.
Despite many of the actual shooters on the hit being captured or killed by the police, the self-professed mastermind of the hit, Goldie Brar, remains free and on the run from murder charges, with rumours as recent as May 2024 that he might have been gunned down in California. But these rumours turned out not to be true, and to this day, he still remains at large. Just like many other prolific legends of the rap game, Sidhu Moosewala foreshadowed his own death in countless lyrics and videos, a creepy trend that presents way too many examples in the modern music industry. Countless rappers like XXXTentacion have depicted their own funerals in music videos, from Mac Miller to Mo3, and of course Tupac, one of Sidhu's biggest inspirations, as well as his main rival Biggie, both gunned down in their cars after a turbulent beef, made songs and albums themed after their impending deaths. Fans were quick to note that the date of Sidhu's murder, the 29th of May, echoed the title of one of his most famous songs, 295. They noted that in the eerily titled track The Last Ride, Sidhu had sung about being laid to rest in his youth. His latest album at the time, Moose Tape, contained several references to dying young and the constant threat of being gunned down. These seemingly symbolic coincidences and going out in a dramatic shooting added a halo of greatness around Sidhu, cementing his legacy as an icon, just like many of the great artists who sadly lose their lives way too young. Unfortunately, Sidhu will never be able to live out his full potential, but he left behind a legacy that would never be forgotten. Sidhu stood for far more than just fame and fortune. He chose to stand up for his people, protesting against corruption, and even wanted to run in politics to better the life of his neighbours. But he was also bridging the gap between the East and the West. He truly wanted to change his country, perhaps a little too much. Adding that to the fact that he used his music to get mixed up in a gang conflict ultimately made him the target of an act of vengeance, putting an early end to an incredible life full of potential. Perhaps had he not gone head to head with the politicians, he might not have lost his protection, and maybe he would have had security to shoot back that day. This situation is much deeper than meets the eye, and it's clear that Sidhu's revolutionary spirit meant that a lot of people wanted him dead, and no matter what, we know from his lyrics that he knew he wasn't going to survive. In the aftermath of Sidhu's death came support and grief from all over the world. Images of Sidhu's body was pictured as people paid their last respects before he was laid to rest. One viral video would even circulate showing the heartbreaking scene where his parents broke down over the casket, still struggling to process the loss of their beloved son. Sidhu's death touched people you wouldn't have even expected. Even from his long-time perceived enemy in music, Karan Aujla, would be seen crying on social media following the news, later releasing a tribute song. But it wasn't just Indian artists paying their respects to Sidhu. Also, some of the biggest artists in the entire world. Drake would pay respects to Sidhu on his OVO radio show Table for One, as well as wearing a t-shirt reading RIP Sidhu Moosewala, something that was later released to the public for sale. Here in the UK, YouTube sensation KSI would also be seen wearing a t-shirt commemorating Sidhu and honouring his first album PBX1. African giant and Afrobeats legend Burna Boy would also share his heartbreak after Sidhu passing, as he was seen breaking down on stage while singing RIP Sidhu Moosewala and copying Sidhu's signature thigh slap. Burna Boy also mentioned Sidhu on his appearance on the hip-hop podcast $1 Million Worth of Game, showing that him and Sidhu had actually planned to release a joint mixtape.
Yeah, that's kind of the same thing I felt with Rest in Peace Sidhu Moosewala, who just died. He was like a legend from India, you know, from Punjab, you know, and his music from the beginning, even before we got, you know, close and, you know, started working on a mixtape that might never come out now. Yeah, man, I just felt the music. I just felt like bruh, like I could have made this.
Right.
You know,
Right.
even if I don't even speak no Punjab or nothing, you feel me? But I could literally sing most of the songs that I f with word for word.
Don't even know the
and
language.
I don't even know what it means.
Right.
You understand?
Right. So that just means it's a great f***ing melody and a great beat.
Yeah,
and great
it talks
melodies.
to your soul.
Right.
It really talks to your soul. Like, whatever it's telling your soul, whether it's good or bad, it's still talking to your soul.
Right.
You know?
And regardless of the language barriers, Sidhu's music was so strong, it resonated with Burna Boy deeply. He would actually visit Sidhu's parents' house in the UK, gifting them a painting of their son. Furthermore, UK drill rapper Tion Wayne, who collaborated with Sidhu on a couple of tracks, including Celebrity Killer, would pay homage to Sidhu in his own 2023 solo track, Healing. In the video, Tion visits Sidhu's house in Musa, surrounded by armed guards, and of course his famous tractors. The music video ends with a special tribute to Sidhu, reading Legends Never Die. However, Sidhu's death was sadly not only used to pay respects, as political parties in India attempted to use him as a tool to gain influence. In the Sangra Lok Sabha by-polls in 2022, the INC party proceeded to use Sidhu's image as a tool within their election campaigns. This move was objected to by Sidhu's family, who then proceeded to appeal for the party not to use their son's image and persona for political or personal gain. Regardless of all the accolades and influence Sidhu gained in his career, in the end, he was brutally murdered in broad daylight over the actions of other men that had nothing to do with him. His parents had lost their dear and only son, which is heartbreaking when considering the level of respect and affection that Sidhu showed his parents throughout his career, such as the time that he supported his mother in the Musa election, or releasing his own tribute song Dear Mama, just like Tupac did. Sadly, his parents, just like countless others, fell victim to their son being taken away by ruthless gangsters. And after his son's death, Sidhu's father requested fans via Instagram not to try and visit them in person, explaining that they have left their village for a couple of months after fans from all over the world have been visiting to give their condolences. But this wasn't the only issue that the family faced. Moosewala's father, Balkaur Singh, reported to the police that he had received a death threat from a Pakistani phone number. Soon after Sidhu's cremation, A statue would be erected in his honor at the same site, and his father Balkaur Singh would take the opportunity to voice his frustration at the government, asking in a Times of India interview why there's been no arrest of Goldie Brar. Sidhu's father also shed light on the Shaganpreet Singh, the manager who had allegedly gotten Sidhu targeted in the first place after arranging the murder of Vicky Midakera, claiming that he didn't realize that brothers would become enemies, and explaining that he would take their names and get to the bottom of things. But it seems that these bold public statements from Sidhu's father likely angered the Bishnoi gang who were responsible, and following this, with zero empathy for the family, they would issue a direct death threat towards Sidhu's father over his comment, saying that you and your son don't own the country and you can't give security to whoever you want. Sidhu's parents weren't the only ones heartbroken over Sidhu's murder, as fans from all over the world would pay their respects, detailing just how much the loss had affected them, and how Sidhu's music had even allowed themselves to get closer to their own culture. One fan would give a detailed breakdown as to why Sidhu was so beloved, even mentioning how people were taking the loss as if they had lost one of their own family members. But although Sidhu was gone, his momentum was far from over, and he still had a locker of unreleased songs and powerful messages, such as SYL, a song which was taken down 3 days after its original upload due to its controversial and anti-government nature, yet it still managed to go on to amass 22 million views. Thankfully it was still reinstated and is available today. After his death, Sidhu's music posthumously charted in numerous countries, taking his already enormous influence to new highs. In April 2023, Steel Bangles also released a posthumous song from Sidhu featuring Burna Boy. The song's a beautiful tribute to Sidhu and explains the importance of his name, with Mera Na meaning my name. The video features multiple shots honouring Sidhu, such as Drake wearing the RIP Sidhu shirt, as well as a field of his beloved tractors, and his face appearing in the clouds. Sidhu left behind a beautiful legacy and was a great example and role model for the Punjabi jacked people. Although his family faced massive amounts of trauma and backlash following Sidhu's death, recently the family shared an incredible surprise to the world in March 2024. 2 years after Sidhu's murder, they had delivered a new son. Through the process of IVF, the parents were blessed with a newborn child, even at such a late stage in life, which elated Sidhu fans across the world, who began claiming Sidhu is back. And it appears that they might be right, as the family aptly named their newborn son that same iconic name, Shubdeep Singh Sidhu, even sharing an image of the newborn son on social media, with a caption saying that this child was blessed by the millions of souls who already loved Sidhu. Balkaur Singh claimed that the son he lost, Sidhu, has now come back to him, and that finally the family had some positive news. Unfortunately, the Indian government still didn't let up on the family. Seemingly, in fear of the revolutionary spirit of a newborn child, they would begin harassing the couple, ordering them to prove the legitimacy of the birth due to their age and the restrictive IVF rules that exist in India. In one video released to social media, Sidhu's father pushes back against the police for harassing him, requesting that the government allow the treatment to get completed before he's called upon to prove the legitimacy of the child. For now, it seems that the family have been left to raise their newborn child in peace, but unfortunately they lost their son, and the world lost an incredible artist and radical thinker when Sidhu Moosewala passed. But just like the popular saying that emerged following Sidhu's death, legends never die, and that revolutionary spirit that Sidhu put into his music and the hearts of every Jat from Musa and beyond will live forever. So I just want to end this video by saying rest in peace to one of the most interesting and incredible artists the world has ever experienced. I enjoyed learning all about Sidhu Moosewala, and I hope you did too. Thank you for watching, and until next time, peace out.
Yo got the whole Trap Lord T, bro, grind. That shit said Trap Lord Jamal.
Thank you.
Trap
the world
Lord.
Has ever this video by
Trap Lord Gav.
Trap rest
Lord
in peace
Ross.
to one of the most interesting and incredible artists the world has ever experienced.
Trap Lord Jamal, Trap Lord James, Trap Lord Aldo. That was I saying Trap Lord. Shout out to the team, shout out to everybody involved in this, man. This was an amazing fucking video. I'm glad I finally got this last part out to y'all. I'm sorry it took so long. I love y'all. I love the support that y'all been showing to me. I love just the fact that y'all took y'all time out today to stop by to the channel. For real, that shit mean no fucking world to me, bro. I would never understand. I really do appreciate that shit. I really love y'all. But I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna dip the fuck up out of here, man. Let me know what y'all want to see me react to next. Let me know some Sidhu Moosewala songs I can react to in the comment section down below. Drop what y'all want to see me react to, and I'm gonna get to that shit, man. I love y'all. Peace out.